do I put this without people thinking I'm being bitter or whatever? Last week, I mean, I don't like the way Joe's been talking about AJ. And that's just me being, call me what you want, an AJ fanboy. And last week, the whole topic of conversation was about Anthony Joshua, right? He's finished. He's a shot fighter. He's this. He's that. And what happened was, I mean, if you want to be super harsh, the reality is, Joyce has never boxed an elite heavyweight.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ouch.
Zhilei Zhang is not an elite heavyweight. Right? Joe, forget came in light, forget all this bollocks. He wasn't good enough to deal with Zhilei Zhang. When you sell your attributes on the basis of, I'm really good because you can hit me as hard as you like and I just keep on coming, that is not the recipe for longevity in a career, or in my opinion, the kind of career that necessarily you want in boxing. He gets hit by absolutely everything, Joyce. And sooner or later, at 36, is he now? Or 37, you just, like, that. I would understand if Joyce retired from boxing. He's taken, over the years, don't forget how many amateur fights, one of the best amateurs we've had. He's taken unbelievable punishment in sparring, in amateur tournaments, even in the professional code. And it was really uncomfortable watching it on Saturday. And I think Joyce is great. I tuned in to watch him. But if you can't beat Zhilei Zhang, you have absolutely no chance to win a world heavyweight title. No chance.
Wow. Those are the words of Eddie Hearn, as you guys heard him ever so clearly break down Joyce's career, how he was marketed, what type of fighter he was, and ultimately he should retire or could retire. And there's no chance that he will be a heavyweight champion and let me counterpunch. Start from the beginning of this passage from Eddie Hearn. One thing, I think a lot of this, like he said, if I had to be harsh, cruelly harsh, right? He didn't like how he was talking about AJ. So I think a lot of this was fueled by the fact that Joyce had a lot to say about his fighter, in fact, his top fighter, Anthony Joshua. So let's understand that, okay? Let's understand the mindset of Eddie Hearn and why he's saying this about Joyce. Yeah, I like him. He's a good fighter. I'll tune in and watch him. But he didn't like what he said. And I think a lot of reasons why he didn't like what Joyce said, he said a lot of these things. Now, how many of these things are true, or basically how many of these things I agree with? Well, sometimes at this point, knowing what we know now about Joyce, if you look back at the fights that he took a lot of punishment, and he did, I do agree with that. Joyce takes a lot of punishment, and it's due to lack of defense. And the truth of the matter is, it eventually caught up with him. That's why. The lack of defense is why his eye swelled. It's why, first of all, that's why he got hit like that, for his eye to swell. Okay, so we got to call it what it is. And the way he's marketed, I think, was a good thing. I don't think it was a bad thing, because if Joe, as long as he could take the punches, as long as he could take the punishment and show his durability, that marketed Joyce to be the juggernaut, to be a guy that is a force to be reckoned with. So no, you can't take that away from Joyce. However, now that he's lost, you can now look back and think like, wow, okay, maybe this is a result of all the punishment that he's taken, because he's taken a lot of it. And sooner or later, that will come back to get you. Now, that's true. And another thing is true from Eddie Hearn. What he said was the fact that that's not good for longevity. Longevity of this boxing game is not to get hit like that. Because, for one thing, screw the career. How about the rest of Joe Joyce's life? How about when he's 47, 57, 67? Okay, so how about the next 30 years? What type of quality of life will he have taking those type of shots? Okay, I look at boxers as people first, athletes second, and every fucking thing else third, fourth, and fifth. So I look at the livelihood of the fighter, pollen season. So I look at the fighter as a person, because he is a person. He has a woman. Does he want kids? Does he want a family? You know what I mean? Can he spend time with the family that he has now? Those things I think about. And that is true. Like taking shots like that with guys that do hit and crash, especially the heaviest division in boxing sport, heavyweight division. Yeah, you're taking a lot of punishment, a lot of velocity. You're taking a lot of punishment, a lot of violent acts and blows, and that can weigh a toll on you. It can. Now, is Joe Joyce an elite fighter? I think Joe Joyce is one of the top fighters. He deserves to be where he's at from what he was doing, and he did that to get where he was at. He took one loss. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. The question you ask yourself, people, is if Joe Joyce was a matchroom fighter, would Eddie Hearn be saying that? And we already know, how about a half-pass hour to hell to the no? How about that? No, he wouldn't. Is Zhilei Zhang an elite fighter? Guess what? I think he is, because what have we learned from putting certain fighters that we never heard of against fighters that's supposed to have been way up here? We've learned that it's not that big of a gap anymore, okay? So we can't say who's elite and who's not elite. This is what shows us that we do need more fights like Joe Joyce Zhang, like Jermaine Franklin Joshua. Okay, we need fights like that because we don't know the outcome. It's not set in stone based on our perception of who we think is on this level and or not. Let's put them in there and see who wins and see what they do at least. And then we'll see, well, damn, they're not that many miles apart, are they? No, they're not. So for Eddie Hearn saying, oh, well, I don't think Joe Joyce will ever be a heavyweight champion because he can't beat Zhilei Zhang. Okay, fair enough. Since you figured that, that's like other people saying, well, I don't think AJ is a good fighter because he lost to Alexander Usyk. Okay, have you fought fucking Usyk? No. Okay, so here's the thing. Has Joshua fought Zhilei Zhang? No. As a matter of fact, we heard he turned that down because he was a southpaw or whatever the hell the reason was, right? So don't shit down Zhilei Zhang's back right now because he's defeated Joe Joyce and because you think Zhilei Zhang's not an elite fighter, therefore Joe Joyce is no good. That's just like Bob Arum saying Andy Ruiz was trash because he got beat by Joseph Parker. Or should I say AJ is trash because he got beat by Andy Ruiz. That's what he said, actually. Right? And none of that. That's not true. Styles make fights. They will always make fights. And when they come together, we will see a conclusion. We will see the mix-up. We will see the jail formation. And we will see a result on what the hell happens when these two styles collide. That's it. Levels of this and that. There's only one level in boxing. That's how much a fighter gets paid. Okay? All these fighters are trained to do a certain thing from guys that knew or was trained to do something that they were trained to do. So this all levels and this shit, you know what? In the heavyweight division, we've learning that that's been more and more inaccurate. So will Joe Joyce be a heavyweight champion? There's a possibility. Okay? And it ain't because he lost to Zhilei Zhang, because we don't know if Zhilei Zhang is an elite fighter or not. But I can tell you this, the more fighters he's in there, the more we will know And I think Zilly Zhang will kick a lot of ass that he calls an elite fighters. So the question you ask yourself in leaving, guys, what does Eddie Hearn consider an elite fighter these days? How many do we really have? But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Eddie Hearn's assessment on Joe Joyce and claiming that he will never be a champion. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!